I'll start kind of backwards, because one of the things that we're looking to do at this location, you all have the address, 4346 Frankford. And the business has been there. Go ahead.
The location is Frankford and Unity, that little shopping center with a little mini mart.
Quickie Square.
Quickie Mart.
Quickie Mart,
That's
yeah.
what we're talking about.
That's it.
And basically what we're doing is, I'll let Joseph finish, basically what it is, he's not for zoning yet. He wants to prepare this ahead of time because there's multiple steps that things that have to be done.
Yes.
So we want to come and get community feeling on it before we go. You're up, Joe.
Okay, so one of the things, and this, as I say, I'm kind of starting with dessert rather than the appetizer, is the facade looks somewhat like this now. There are different kinds of signs at the different kinds of stores. We're going to make them all uniform in size, and then the facade will look like this when it's all done. The store has been there for a considerable amount of time. Based on sales, based on the times, in order to make this a more viable store, and I think many of you know this store, and I know many of the community people know, because Harry has been a good neighbor and active in the neighborhood, and runs a very nice store. What he wants to do is add a deli component, which would be cordoned off down here in the side, be about 400 square feet. So the deli could be served inside that, or it could be made here and brought to there. And there would be a beer case inside this enclosure. When I say enclosure, it's going to be probably this high in terms of being closed off. It's not going to be enclosed where nobody can see. We will have a person on duty in there, because obviously, in the same way that he checks for cigarettes, which you have to make sure the person is of age, then somebody there would check. No one would be able to get beer who would be underage. And the reason it's not a fully delineated plan is that we're working with the attorney who does the liquor work. I don't do that, to make sure that we meet all requirements of the PLCB, as well as the requirements that Harry has. And I'm very, tell you that as a lawyer who does work with the city, it's amazing. His record, for instance, on cigarettes is 100%, which is tough, because people come in and stand in the back and maybe quite not 18, but looks 18 and so forth. Everything that they do gets checked. They will have the same kind of checker here. The registers will be set up so that you can't get beer unless you first have it checked. So that will be the safety valve. As I say, what there will be seating in here, and the reason we don't have a completed plan, as I say, is we're working out now the details of how that would be designed. The store would continue to operate, but because it will be called a deli restaurant, and that's because people will sit and eat, and because of that and the beer, we would have to go back to the board. At least that's the way it looks now. When we finish our plan, I will file it, and we'll see what the exact refusals are. I may get surprised, as I was a week ago. I sent one in that I bet was going to go to the board, and I don't know whether somebody made a mistake or I was overly cautious. We ended up getting the permit. So, but I expect here that we will go to the board, and I think it will be a certificate case. And I know all of you get through this all the time, so what it is a case where you don't have to generally prove a hardship for variance. You just have to prove that you're not going to be harmful, and I'm lumping a lot of things into that little phrase. Harry, how long have you been there?
Since probably 92.
Right. So his track record, a lot of times I represent people who are new, who are going to buy into a place or going to rent a place. Harry's track record speaks for itself. Some of you I know have been in the store, and we think that by utilizing a very small portion of the overall square footage, It will not be burdensome on the neighborhood. This is not like building a full-scale restaurant, but it is one that will enhance and save, so to speak, in this kind of time, his business, because he will have people who will sit down and eat and so forth, and it will encourage people to come in. And as I say, all of the safeguards, and the reason we drew in where the register and the checker is that's where we think it will go. It might go over a little to the left, it might go to the right. We have it, we've asked that when the plan is finished, whenever you come into this area, or whenever the case is opened where the beer is kept, a buzzer will go. So even if the person up there might otherwise not know that you were there, they'll know. The minute that door opens, a buzzer will ring. The minute you come through, so that you can check on the age of the person coming into that. And the appropriate signage about age will be up there. So it's in a little bit like that old expression, the tail wagging the dog, because the dog, forgive me, I didn't mean that you was the dog, but the major part of the square footage will be maintained as it is now. And you still get the Ben and Jerry's and the Haagen-Dazs, which I was looking at tonight, but I noted the buzzer rings, so I didn't open the case. That's the case. I mean, there's not much more to say about it other than he will make the appropriate applications through the Liquor Control Board, and he will be vetted as to character and lack of criminality and so forth. As again, for those of you who know him, I think that you'll find that he would more than qualify, and he would more than qualify for your trust. I think he's been a force for good in the community, and we think this is while it's a major step in some ways, it's really a minor addition to his business. That's it.
Will it be new hours? Cause you're not open until 11 now, are you?
No, summer hours we always open up to 11.
In the winter, they close earlier.
Winter 9:30.
And
But when we gonna do this, gonna be 11.
11.
okay, now what they're applying for is called an E-license. An E-license has quite a few restrictions on it. Part of the restriction says you cannot sell, this is basically gonna be a takeout beer. There will be some sit-down drinking. Part of the E-license regulations, I believe, or as we talked, that you must, in order to sit down and drink a beer, you have to have food. Be a sandwich, a platter, or something. You cannot just sit there and drink a beer by itself.
And we will have, by the way, so that, again, as to the crowd, they will have sandwich making right there. They will bring stuff over, but it will be made in here, because, as you point out, everybody has to have food, and it's not intended to be anything else.
And part of the license is from, sold from 11 o'clock in the morning till closing. So it's not like they're gonna come in 6, 7 o'clock, or you open what, 8 o'clock? 6 in the morning. So they cannot come in at 6 o'clock in the morning and buy beer, stand outside somewhere. The regulations, we're still checking on the list of the regulations, but I believe the regulation is from 11 in the morning until closing. As far as the inside part, you have to have some type of food to sit down and drink.
Right, Chapman's in.
Hi. Though, in your words, this is a small variance to what he's doing, I think it's a major variance to this neighborhood where crime rate is at an all-time high on all levels. And to have a place that now has beer that is now gonna be on the streets versus in the bars, is a little bit of concerning. And as much of a champion of justice as you're making him out to be, even though I've been in Frankfurt my whole life, I've never met him, and I actually don't live too far from there. And I even remember when it was Wawa. So, so I remember that. I think this is something that, people need to look at for that. I mean,
Well, that's why we're
you're
here.
a great
I mean,
speech talker, but at the end of the day, we're talking about, at the end of the day, I could walk in and buy liquor for anybody. I have an ID. You swipe it, I get it, I leave out, and I hand it to somebody.
Listen, The answer to that is you can never outsmart somebody that wants to break the
That's why you
rules.
don't put it in the
Listen, I could
neighborhood.
go out now and buy a carton of cigarettes and give every 14-year-old I
Right.
see a free, but I'm not gonna do it.
Right.
And by the way, the guy who sells it to me, unless he knows I'm giving it out to 14-year-old kids, is not culpable.
That's all
And by the
the
way,
reason why you
the
probably
next
don't
door
wanna put it in the
neighbor,
neighborhood.
the next door neighbor is a wine and spirit store.
That's right.
So it's not a question of introducing something for the first time into an area. Yes, sir.
Mr. Patel, do you own the entire strip mall?
Part of it.
Now, do you own the wine and spirits next door?
No, you never own the one that's.
Okay. Cause I got two questions.
I'm
The
sorry,
first-
but
I think-
are
I
you
think
saying
these are
own the
things.
real estate or own the business?
Well, you own the real estate too.
You can't own the business.
You don't necessarily own the business, but you own the entire strip
Right.
mall.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
So the only concern is, you already have a, wine and spirits in that same strip mall. So you put the beer, cause what you do have down there, you do have
Oh,
folks
one
who
slot,
stand
liquor
out
slot.
and drink in front of the wine and spirits. They do that. They'll buy a pint or whatever it is, sit out there, they'll ask for money all day long. When you add in this beer, distributed, sandwich with beer, you now start a new wave of the people we're dealing with, that's kinda on a 4700 at that little beer stop. They get the beer, they sit out there, and that's basically what they do all day long. They probably,
Right where the news community
find
is.
a new
Right, yeah.
place. You got the Salvation Army that's
1600 point,
abandoned now.
yeah.
So with the Salvation Army being abandoned, that now becomes their new post. So they purchase the beer, they purchase the pint, and now it's party time at Salvation Army. So my question is, will the modification still happen if you do not get this variance for takeout, in terms of the signage? Is that still on the table, or that's off the table?
Well, two way we can look this, when I'm gonna go, obviously, let's backtrack it. You need money to modernize the place. So obviously, we're gonna have a loan draw and things like, so this complete package is part of it.
So without one is not the other.
We hadn't thought,
We didn't thought, everything is a one package.
Correct.
You have to remember,
Before, also, what you see now in the store is gonna be completely gutted out and everything gonna be brand new. And that's what we, just for a record, as you know, since you are so much about community and everything, I lost 30% of the business because every corner store. Nobody monitor it, they sell everything, as me and him talk about it. If you go, I guarantee you tonight, in any corner store, you can buy whatever you want. There's no regulation done. When it's come down to identity of Frankfurt as a convenience store, I think everybody come, city come, check 10 times on me, on everything. And I try to be up on my feet and do everything possible. So business is down. Possibility is if I don't increase my business and mortgage and everything, chances are I'll be shut down.
Is there any other solution opposed of selling alcohol that you can increase those numbers?
Well, I try so hard from last 9 months, try very hard, every possible thing that I think CDC and everybody know, I've been trying so much, and, I don't know what other way. The problem is, when you wanna do the clean business versus corner stores, every time, I know they're open every 6 months, they take you a couple $100 every day, then you struggle. And that's what the problem.
the other thing that I just think, there are surveillance cameras in there now, and of course, that's one of the other safety features that we have surveillance.
are they outside?
Yes.
Can I just ask one more question? And this is too personal, I don't mind, you not answering it. Alright, do you live in the area?
No.
You do not live in the area?
I